And welcome everybody to episode 4 of the 2023 season of Trav Chat. My name is IMCFTraveller, and I'm here with my co-host George. George, how are you doing today?
Doing well, my friend. How are you doing?
No, I'm feeling good. Happy I'm not going to New York City this weekend. Ready to sit down and watch a game from the couch.
Yeah, the last couple of trips you've made up there have not been very great for the team. So maybe this will spur a better result.
Yeah, me and New York City just have a bad history between playoff elimination. The match before that was Venezuela decided to put a boot through Andre Reyes' chest. And then I think it was in 21, I went up for a New York City match, and we were in the stadium for like 3.5 hours, and then they called the match off because of lightning. So me and New York City do not get along.
Well, let's hope that with a new season and with you taking a traveling break, we will see better results than we have in the Big Apple in the past.
Yeah, I'm certainly hopeful. But before we dive too far into that, Miami's coming off a pretty massive 2-0 win over Philly at home this weekend. A match that many, including many on this podcast last week, didn't really think Miami was going to manage a win in. Many thought that, a draw, yeah, but a outright dominant win, many did not expect. So Miami went out and got goals from Coco Jean and goal of the year, in my opinion, from Robert Taylor to get another 2-0 win to start off the season.
Yeah, I have to kind of raise my hand and say, I put a prediction out there that I didn't think that we were going to win. After watching week 1, I felt more confident about a tie, but I was deeply impressed with the performance that we put out there. I thought that there may have been some lineup shifting from, a rotation from Philly going into this with CCL, this week. And that didn't happen. They, Jim Curtin put out his best 11, and they came out and they came ready to play, and we matched their intensity. And, because of 2 absolutely stunning, beautiful goals, we walked away with a win. And I think that it's a statement win for this team. They're really showing that they are energized coming into this season and want to really, put their mark on this league and quiet some of the doubters.
Yeah, Miami now 2 games into it has scored 4 goals and allowed none. And all 4 of those goals have come from players who aren't necessarily stars in this lineup. Game 1, it came from Sergei Kristov and Shandir Borgelin. Game 2, it came from Coco Jean and Robert Taylor. So these are 4 guys that, while yes, they're expected to produce, none of them are expected to be the ones to be winning games for us, especially when this team has Josef Martinez and Leo Campana. So it's really nice to see that secondary scoring this early in the year.
Yeah, and that's something that this team has missed is reliable options outside of our superstars. To have guys that are threatening, and that is a really nice improvement. And it's something that I'm really excited to see happen early in this season. I think Phil, either post game or maybe a day or so after, was talking about this team and how he believes that they have another 20-30% more to give, to show. And, listening to those comments, I think it's pretty obvious that it's not just about the players who aren't on the field, like a Leo, or what may come in the summer, but the ability for the guys that are playing right now to meet their best level together as a unit. And that is Stefanelli, Joseph, Coco, Pizarro, getting those guys to really kind of gel and show what they have at their top level. I think Phil expects more, and I think that's what he's signaling, is say that like this is working, but he truly does believe that there's another level. And I agree. I think Stefanelli clearly isn't 100%. He's not there yet. Joseph, same thing. We know what Joseph's level can be. The question all off season and now 2 games in is what is his level going to be? Is he going to be 2019 Joseph, or is he going to be at least better than 21, 22 Joseph? Like we still don't know what we have there, but I don't think it's all his fault. I don't think it's all his fitness. He's not getting progressive balls played into him in dangerous positions. I think there were opportunities in this game to do that. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit more later on, but it's about the gelling. And when we look back to last season, sorry, I'm going long, but when we look back to last season, the first 5 games was that this team figuring out who they were playing with. And we brought back most of that roster, and we injected, new players and new talents on top of that. So those guys are trying to catch up, but to really kind of anchor this team, you're seeing what Mota and Gregory are doing after playing with each other for a year, and they've been absolutely impressive. And I didn't see that tandem being this good. And I'm going to leave it at that right now because I'm kind of rambling. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything. And, I think Phil's comments were, kind of directed at guys like Stefanelli and Josef. These are 2 guys that, they have more to give. We've seen, in their prior form that they do have more to give. So, obviously both of them are coming back up to fitness. And, in terms of Josef, he hasn't, either gotten the service from a guy like Stefanelli or Pizarro in the midfield behind him. And in my opinion, it's more so he hasn't really had somebody to play with. We've played really more of a like 4-2-3-1 versus the 2 striker formation that Phil talked all preseason about. And I think that when Leo Campana comes back and plays alongside Josef, that's going to unlock kind of both of them, because they truly are different types of strikers. I mean, Leo Campana is a big target forward, while Josef Martinez is smaller and the type of guy who can get in behind. So it's going to be very interesting when they come back, and I think those 2 are going to be key to unlocking each other, even if they don't have a true number 10 playmaker behind them.
So, Trav, let me ask you this. The comments today from Phil were Campana is still a week or 2 away. Joseph is still probably, another 2 or 3 weeks from being fully 90 minutes fit. Stefanelli, probably again another 2 or 3 games until he's fully 90 minutes fit. I don't anticipate, Leo and Josef to be on the same page from the jump. How would you want to approach over the next 3 games integrating them into this lineup? Do you want to see Neville just go for it? Like pull the Band-Aid off, switch formations, yank one of the midfielders off of the starting 11 and inject Leo right in? Or do you want to see something a little bit more gradual? Joseph playing 60 minutes, Leo coming on, playing 30 minutes, waiting until maybe we hit a skid where we have a couple of draws or a couple of losses before we change tactical formations. Like, how would you approach it, and what do you think Phil's going to do?
I would approach it in that first week that Josef and Leo are both available. I would take my time with Leo, and that's honestly what I think the club is going to do. Because at this point, why fix what ain't broke? Miami's winning. We're winning games in good fashions. It's not 2022 Miami where, we would win a game in the 3rd, 94th, 95th minute. So I would definitely turn around and kind of ease Leo back in and, play Hossa for 60 minutes and then bring on Leo for the final 30. And then once both of them are truly 100% fit, then yeah, take out a guy like, Coco Jean and move to that kind of 4-4-2 diamond with Josef and Campana both up top, Stefanelli behind them, Malta, Gregory, Pizarro in the midfield. So that's what I would do, looking at this team, looking how we're playing, and kind of seeing where we are injury-wise. For me, the bigger question is, what does Miami do this weekend, especially with the news that Robbie Robinson, Shandir Borgelin are both day-to-day right now. Franco Negri is a major doubt, but Phil believes he will play. And, Leo Campana out until at least next week, and Jake LaCava nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think that the 4-2-3-1 that we've seen is a different formation than the the true wide winger style formation that we were playing a lot of last year. Given that, we're going into, Yankee Stadium, that very narrow pitch, I think that what this midfield has shown is that we don't need to attack with width from the midfield forward. That this team does feel comfortable with the wide play of Yedlin and Negri to give that support moving forward. And I think that we might actually see a better version of our team on a narrow pitch than we've ever seen Inter Miami, in this kind of environment before. Because I think that the spine of this team, especially considering how well Mota is linking between Coco and Pizarro and is playing that a little bit more progressive than Gregory, but still being kind of that defensive spine and playing that stopper role and covering so well, the left and right flanks as a unit, that, I think that this team is actually better set up to play in this environment than we've ever been before. And it's going to be interesting because New York, I've been, I watched the Nashville game. I've spent some time watching, their game from last week, and it's a different team, and I really don't know what to anticipate with them. But I think that that formationally, what we've seen the first 2 weeks is going to be successful. Like the deficiencies that playing New York on the road present typically aren't going to be as impactful as they usually are with this formation and this lineup.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. This Miami team is better suited to play narrow this year. Well, Malta and Gregory have both shown that this year, when we're on the attack, Yedlin and Negri are pushing high, and Malta and Gregory are both then dropping deep to basically give Miami a back four at all times, despite the two fullbacks pushing high. So it's really interesting to see that for Miami, and especially going up against a team that, yes, we have had problems with. We've had problems with New York City FC. I believe we've only beat them once, and it was because of Alejandro Pozuelo. But, this is also a changed NYCFC team. They only just re-added Santi Rodriguez. They also just re-added James Sands. And despite those additions, this NYCFC team is, without a true 9. They've been playing Talis Magno up there. He's not a 9. They've been playing Matias Pellegrini, former Inter Miami player, at the number 10. He's nowhere close to number 10. They lost one of their starting center backs. They lost their starting goalie. And coming into this match, NYCFC hasn't looked great. They drew a wooden spoon contender team in the Chicago Fire, and they lost to Nashville SC in their first match. So, this is one of those times I feel kind of a bit more confident about Miami going up to Yankee Stadium or Citi Field, wherever we're playing, whatever baseball diamond we're playing on this week, and actually getting a result.
Yeah, I agree. I am more confident, especially after the last 2 weeks and starting to see the patterns of play. I'm more confident not just in our ability to get a result and a win here, but I'm more confident in more I believe more in this team than I did preseason because now I'm seeing the um, actual results, on the field, and I really think that there's something enjoyable about this squad, and I think that's one of the things that as fans we've been missing is kind of the joy of watching a team play good soccer. This was a grinding team for many years, and like you talked about earlier, those 1-0 wins where we're hitting, miracle shots in the 93rd minute to pull out a 1-0 win in the middle of summer. This team isn't playing like that. Some of our goals last weekend were spectacular, but we weren't terribly goal dangerous beside those moments. But you still feel better about how this team is playing and what they're showing us. And so, yeah, I think this is Miami fans have every reason to feel confident going into this game. I wouldn't say cocky, but I would say confident. Um, and in New York just isn't showing much. And I mean, I watched a lot of that Fire game. Um, the night that they were on, last weekend, and I just wasn't seeing, entertaining, dangerous patterns of play between those two sides. There wasn't a lot between them. Pellegrini hasn't looked very good. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with him because I do believe that he's a very talented player and I want him to succeed. But yeah, they're still finding their identity, and I think they're probably still waiting for more reinforcements to come. I think that this is truly a rebuilding season for them.
Yeah, a couple of interesting stats heading into this weekend. Not only can Inter Miami open the season with 3 wins on Saturday, but they can also become the first team in league history to beat each of the top 3 finishing teams in their conference from the previous year in the first 3 match days of the current season. A reminder, Philly finished top of the East last year. Montreal was in second. New York City FC was in third. So that would be a huge history-writing accomplishment for Miami. And then on top of that, only 6 goalies in MLS history have kept 3 consecutive clean sheets to start a campaign. Drake Callender could be number 7 on Saturday with the 2 clean sheets he's already held. Also, Miami should come into this game confident, not cocky, but definitely confident. And, really shouldn't have any reason like in years past where, we went to New York City and, either got rattled early or couldn't play on the narrow pitch or so on and so forth. This year, this Miami team feels like a team that can find a way to grind out a win and get points in a rather, not necessarily hostile, but unfriendly stadium and atmosphere to do it in. So, I mean, I do feel confident going into this weekend, and I feel like this is a team that, despite the plethora of injuries we already have and a poor history up in New York City, I do feel confident in our ability to go there and at least get some sort of a result.
So as we're talking about this, what I think looking at at kind of the essence of this team, like what are you seeing that has changed, or what are you hearing that has changed internally? Because it feels different, right, Trav? Like this isn't the teams that we have been, watching for the last 3 seasons. They're playing with more joy. They do seem to really like each other, and I mean, and I don't want to get into the Pizarro Higuain stuff, but I think there's something more than just that. I think these guys have bought into Phil and into this idea, into the ideas that he's bringing to this team, and to what the identity is. Like, you know, can you shed a little bit of light on what it is that is kind of making this core team and this chemistry work so well, and like what they're feeding off of?
The biggest thing is just the fact that so much of this team already knows each other. Now, going into last season, Miami had just a tremendous amount of turnover still. They still had a lot of truly big personalities on the squad. And that led to a lot of, all right, let's get to know each other time. And, we saw that reflected in the results at the beginning of last year where Miami managed 1 point in their first 5 games. And this year they are playing a lot more free. They're playing with joy. They're playing happy. And a lot of that comes down to just the fact that they know each other already. We've had a year for guys like Campana, Drake, Mabika, Gregory, Malta to set the culture for this Miami side. And, Miami this window only brought people in if they could fit into that culture. And a big reason why Miami decided to keep Rodolfo Pizarro was because he came and he immediately bought into this culture. Now, he is playing arguably the best he's played since before Gonzalo Higuain arrived. And it's showing on the field. He already has, I believe, a 1 assist on the season and is just all over the place. He is challenging for every ball. He is making plays. He's running off the ball. He's doing everything he needs to do. So this Miami team is the definition of a team that's bought in. They've bought into the culture that Phil Neville's built. They've bought into just what this team is trying to build culture-wise, which is, in terms of building a team, arguably the most important thing there is. You can look at a squad like, we'll go overseas for this one, like PSG. PSG has arguably the greatest starting 11 roster in the world right now on paper. However, they just got dumped out in UCL. There's multiple rumors of infighting among the team. Neymar's out for 4 months. Messi's probably leaving this summer. He'll probably be followed by guys like Ramos. And despite this, awesome team on paper, they haven't done anything with it. And that solely comes down to the fact that, they built this culture and not everybody bought into it. And it's affected them negatively on and off the pitch. So that's the really big thing that Phil Neville and this Miami team have done.
And do you think that, I mean, because we've been hearing for the last 2 seasons since Phil's arrival. He came as Beckham's friend. He's a nepotism hire. He didn't earn this. He didn't deserve this. But you know, while I think obviously those relationships have matter as far as getting him in the door and into this position, his history isn't just his relationship with Beckham. His history is you know being a starting member of one of the most dominant teams of the 90s and early 2000s, and having come through a youth system, and having played under one of the greatest coaches of all time. And he wasn't a superstar. He was a glue guy. He was a hard worker. He was he did the dirty work, and he was appreciated by those fans and that club for the work that he did. And I think that is probably what wasn't being talked about with regards to Phil over the last 2 seasons as far as what he brings. And I think we're seeing the fruits of the trust of that system that yeah, he's friends with Beckham, but they also played together. They bled for each other. They won together. They lifted trophies together. They did incredible things together. And I think that in building the team, in building the identity of what this team needs to be, Beckham wanted somebody who to come in and says, who knows what it's like to come up through the youth ranks, to work hard, and to bring the identity for a soccer club that he wanted to see in his club. And I think that had more to do. I think Neville was working his way to that at his other stops before he got here, and in just giving him the time to do it, we're starting to see it pay off. And I think that you know, soccer is one of those sports that coaches don't get that much time anymore. They don't get a long leash. Giving him the ability and the time to build his squad, um, pairing him with somebody like Chris Henderson, and making sure that they're on the same page as far as what the identity is, and then letting Phil manage the men and being able to make those connections. I mean, we didn't talk about the Athletic article when it dropped, a few weeks ago, but if you read it or you listen to the audio recording that was released after the fact, you listen to how Phil talks about this team and about how he talks about man management. You know, he's realistic and he's upfront and he's very candid about, yeah, I can't treat every man on this team the same. Some guys are going to have to have a little bit more leeway, and I have to approach some guys in a different way than I approach others. I can't. There's no uniform way to do this, but his openness and talking about it, I think, shows an authenticity that he's sharing to us. And if he's being able to be authentic to us on the outside, then when he's having these closer relationships with his players, he's probably building an even larger um, basis of trust and control of this team, because these guys are buying in because he's able to look them in the eye and say, I know that I'm doing it this way and I want you to do it that way. And we need in having them buy into that. And I think that's he needs to get a lot of credit for where we are now. And I think, there are probably people out there that owe him an apology.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, I think Phil Neville's greatest trait is that he is a coach of the players. He isn't this type of coach who is going to stun you with, absolutely fantastic tactics or, come out there with some, Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola type stuff and just blow you away and go, wow, he is a master tactician. No, I think Phil Neville's greatest trait is that, he can work with his players. He knows that, oh, yes, you can't treat everybody the same. You can't treat Josef Martinez the same that you treat, Ian Frey. Oh, they're two totally different people with two totally different demands and, two totally different expectations. So, it's really interesting to see that from Phil and see how now that's translated. Oh, that's translated into a perfect start to this season and a overall extremely happy squad. So, I have been saying it for 2 years now that a lot of people owe Phil Neville some apologies. I think this year he is proving that to everybody that, oh yes, he knows what he's doing. He's a competent coach, and that he can turn around and do things like provide the right amount of support that players need, and get their best out of them by doing that.
And I mean, I think that I think he's shown a very strong tactical mind. And I know we've made jokes on here, over the last season that, he's always playing somebody in position. But when we look at what happened last season, like, he just didn't have the players to play all 11 positions on the pitch. Like, he didn't have a natural left back for 80% of the season. That's why Christopher McVey was always playing out of position. Um, those gaps have been filled. And I think the learning experience of, the 2021 and then the 2022 season, he got to play with tactics and formations because he was basically trying to fit square pegs into round holes and trying to win games and build some sort of identity and cohesion. I think we saw that actually pay off this past weekend because, you know, we have a 1-0 lead, coming out of the break, Philly really turned on in the first, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes of the second half, putting us under pressure, controlling the game, playing up tempo, and we stood firm. We played well, but then Stefanelli, or not Stefanelli, uh, Coco gets a knock, Negri gets a knock. They both end up having to come off. Losing. Immediately, what do you see happen? McVey slides out left. Sailor comes on. He now becomes the center back pairing with Christoph, and within the next 3 minutes, we make another tactical save, tactical change, and we move from a 4 in the back to a 5 in the back, and we saw this team play with those ideas, and we saw Sailor spend time in a 3 and 4 back lineup. And so his comfort level with it, even coming off the bench, even not having seen really any minutes at all this season, he played really well. And McVay, we can trust him to at least stopgap on the left-hand side when necessary. And what happened? We changed the tactical formation. We went to a 5-4-1, and as soon as we did that, Taylor's on bombing down the left-hand side, and he comes up with his wonder goal. And Philly basically was out of it at that point. And that, Bryce Duke was extremely good this week, I think, in controlling the midfield and bringing counter pressure to whenever there was a turnover, really turning and going upfield and making them track back. I think Lassie did a really good job of occupying the defenders, challenging with his speed, being in good, dangerous spaces. And we know that these players can do that because Phil had to experiment for so long last season to kind of get a whole, get the identity of these guys and what exactly that they can do, that now he feels comfortable making these kinds of extreme tactical shifts that aren't to just, shut down the game and say we're going to be a wall, but still allow us to play attacking progressive soccer and bring the game to them, just with the identity of the players being changed and modifying that formation. And I think that again is something Phil doesn't get enough credit for.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with that assessment. And Phil saw that, yes, we were getting battered on Saturday, coming out of the half. Philly really put the pressure on. And not only did this squad absorb that pressure and not really give Philly any chances, but the second that he introduced a player like Robert Taylor, who kind of changed the dynamic of how Miami played, it completely opened up Philly again. And of course, Taylor scored a absolute worldie to make it 2-0. But in doing so, Philly looked kind of lost for the 3-4 minutes that Taylor was on. They couldn't adjust to the fact that Miami went from playing centrally and compact to now, all right, we're going to play wide. We're going to play a 5-4-1. We're going to tell you to come at us, and we're just going to drop deep and then hit you right away and, now hit you wide. And that just shows that, Phil does know how to read these games. And, read the turnaround and do what's necessary to kind of change up a game and catch a team on, you know, kind of on their back foot and surprise. So it's really refreshing to see, and it's refreshing to see that Miami can do that. They can do that in the middle of the game. In the 60th minute, we can go from a 4-2-3-1 to a 5-4-1, and not just play defensively, but turn around and change the way that the entire game is played, and really catch these teams kind of just watching the game at that point for a good 5-10 minutes until they finally figure out, wow, okay, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. I think that it's not just the 5-4-3, but a 4-3-3. I mean, like the amount of flexibility that this roster has formationally. I going into the season, I kind of predicted that was one of the things I was going to be watching. Was to see that, like, I the guys are there to play definitely the 4-3-3 because we saw it a lot. The fact that the 4-2-3-1 is working so well, I didn't anticipate it looking this good this early. And now I feel better about what a 4-4-2 diamond will look like. Now that I know kind of what the skill levels are of a guy like Stefanelli, and in bringing in Leo into the squad, like that will add yet another dimension that no one has seen yet. Here we are 2 games into the season, sitting on 6 points, going for 9, and we still haven't seen, our DP signing from this last winter. And that's really encouraging.
Yeah, and I mean, it's especially encouraging to see as, and I'll use this as a transition to our next topic, as we enter a busy year with, U.S. Open Cup, Leagues Cup. It's nice to see that, we can play multiple ways and get production outside of our star players, and, still be a good competitive squad, especially, when with U.S. Open Cup, with Leagues Cup, Miami could be playing, 45 games this year. And, that is just absolutely huge, is to see that we have a deep squad. And, on that note, Leagues Cup matches were announced today. Miami will play their first 2 matches of the Leagues Cup at home at Drive Pink Stadium, July 21st and 25th. On the 21st, they'll be playing Atlas FC from Liga MX. And on the 25th, they'll be hosting Atlanta United. So that is a competition that in a year like this year, Miami's going to have to choose basically 2 of 3 competitions to go for it in. And if it's me, I'm choosing U.S. Open Cup, and with how our form's been in MLS Cup. But Leagues Cup is another relatively easy way to get access into the CONCACAF Champions League. The top 3 teams from Leagues Cup, the champion, second place team, and third place team, all win automatic entry into the CCL, with the first place team actually getting a bye into, I think, the second round of CCL. So, it's a tournament that, if Miami's able to turn around and compete in and find success in, could be a very easy way for them to turn around and get CONCACAF Champions League qualifications going into the 2024 season, where they potentially have a guy by the name of Leo Messi on the squad.
And not only that, but we open this by hosting. We are a host site for that group stage. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you posted something about this earlier, that um, we would get all the way through to the quarterfinals potentially before we faced a team that would require us to play on the road, correct? Did I get that right?
So hosting in the round of 16 and onward will be by their 2022 record. So up until the semifinal, the only two matches where Miami would not host would be against Austin or Dallas. So Miami could go all the way to the semifinals, hosting every single game at DraftKings Stadium, where for 2 years in a row, Miami's been an absolute menace to play against.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've Drive Pink has been a real fortress for us, and if we keep winning, it's only going to get you know stronger and become a harder place to play uh, for opposing teams. Um, as far as like making a pick as far as which competition to focus on, um, it's hard to say how League's Cup is going to look because we've never seen it before. I agree that U.S. Open Cup. I think as far as the the trophy I want in our cabinet, I want U.S. Open Cup in our cabinet, and I think with the depth of the squad and the fact that there are so many other paths to CCL now, that it may be easy. That may actually become the easiest path to getting some silverware, this season, and potentially even moving forward. But I just don't see Phil or the guys on this team prioritizing one over the other. I think they're going to want they're at least right now, seeing how they're playing, seeing what the attitude is around the club, that if they can keep this up, they keep this energy up, they stay in a top three position. These guys aren't used to winning, and they certainly don't want to go back to losing. And I think that might give them kind of that adrenaline boost to say like, no, we want to play in all of these matches. And yeah, I think rotation will obviously have to happen. But I don't think that, you know, I think it would be a blow to the kind of ethos of the team if, Phil was like, all right, we're just putting out a full B side and, a couple of our, Fort Lauderdale CF squad, on the bench for this match. I don't think that these guys have too much pride. And barring a collapse, which absolutely could occur, I don't see them wanting to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't see. I can't see many squads, at least for the first game of League's Cup, putting out their B teams. I think there's only one first ever true League's Cup. I think a lot of squads, at least for the very first match, are going to be like, all right, let's play our A team. And then I'll see where they land from there. But I do think at some point you have to prioritize one or two of these competitions more than the other, because in a year where you can play 45 to 50 games, one of these competitions has to be arguably less important, just because of the sheer fact that guys need rest. Guys can't play 50 55 matches in a year because they're going to get injured, they're going to get tired. So I see Miami, by the time that league's here, we'll be halfway through the season by then. We'll have an idea of where we are, and especially where we are in the U.S. Open Cup. I think by then Miami will make a choice. And in that first match, as much as two matches at home in front of La Familia is kind of Miami's bread and butter, I do think that there's a chance Miami does play the kids or play the B team to turn around and play out League's Cup and basically say, all right, let's get in and out of here.
But I mean, the thing about Leagues Cup is, unlike US Cup, there is no. It's not. It's its own confined tournament. The league stops, and for the next month, this is what we're doing, and that, I worry about blowing out the kids in the first two games, not making it out of that group stage, and then having 3 weeks off. Where some guys are going to go on vacation, and they're going to come back, and you got to get them back up to match fitness, and they haven't been cohesive, and they haven't kept that chemistry going. And I think that I don't know, there's just something about this team right now that I think that they're going to want to push through. This is year 4 of this project. I will remind all of my old MLS, and South Florida soccer fans about what happened in the 4th year of the Fusion. U.S. Open Cup final, Supporter Shield winning, one of the best teams that has ever performed, in this league, and definitely up to that point. It was a magical season. I hope that this team wants to gift us the same kind of joy that team, 23 years ago gave us. And that's really kind of where I'm at. This is more of a nostalgia trip for me, Trav, than anything, in saying yeah, I want them to play every single one of these games and, win all 59 of them or whatever. But I think, I don't know. There's just, I don't know. I have this weird feeling, and me, I try to be realistic and rational in this, but I don't know. I've got kind of the bug right now where I'm I kind of want to believe.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think anybody can blame you for wanting to believe right now with what this squad's shown us through the first 2 weeks of the season. But we've talked the Philly match, we've talked the NYCFC match, we've talked Leagues Cup. George, can you think of anything else for this week?
I don't know if this is a trick question or not.
I feel like we kind of owe it to the people for a shorter episode after last week's. God, I think true. An hour and 45 minutes last week.
And Austin really did bring it. So yeah, I mean, I think we're good, unless anybody out there has any burning questions, because you guys have been quiet. And I don't know if everyone's just burnt out after what happened last weekend, or this pod last week. But yeah, I mean, if there's no other pressing questions, I think we can call it a show, my friend.
Yeah, I agree with that, my friend. So, given that there's no other pressing questions, comments, concerns, or smart aleck remarks, we'll call it an end to this week's episode of Trav Chat. Thank you again to everybody for tuning in. If you tuned in afterwards and you're listening to the recording on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your recordings, please make sure to follow us on Twitter. I am at IMCFTraveller. My co-host George is at Jorge DTA. You can also catch these podcasts now recorded on the Inter Miami podcast page on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you again for joining us. We will be back next week as Miami looks to go perfect 3-0 to start the season against the top 3 teams from last season. So, George, let's end this episode how we end every single one.
Vamos Miami.
Vamos Miami. Thank you again to everybody for tuning in.